In the quiet, unassuming neighbourhood of Enfield, North London, a modest house on Green Street became the epicenter of one of the most terrifying and well-documented paranormal events in history. What began as faint, unexplained noises soon escalated into a full-blown haunting that would captivate the world, challenge skeptics, and leave even the most seasoned investigators baffled. This is the story of the Enfield Poltergeist, a tale so chilling, so inexplicable, that it continues to haunt the minds of those who dare to explore it. It was the summer of 1977 when Peggy Hodgson, a single mother raising 4 children in a small 3-bedroom house, first noticed something was amiss. Her 2 daughters, 11-year-old Janet and 13-year-old Margaret, began complaining of strange noises at night, knocking on the walls, scratching sounds, and the faint creaking of floorboards. At first, Peggy dismissed these occurrences as the natural sounds of an old house, or perhaps the overactive imaginations of her children. But the noises grew louder, more persistent, and undeniably unnatural. One night, the family was jolted awake by the sound of heavy furniture being dragged across the floor. Peggy rushed into the girls' room, only to witness something that would forever change her life. Janet, her youngest daughter, was levitating above her bed, her body suspended in mid-air. The terrified mother watched in horror as Janet was tossed around the room by an unseen force. This was no longer a case of imagination. It was something far more sinister, something that defied all logic and reason. As the days turned into weeks, the activity in the house intensified. Chairs would slide across the floor on their own. Toys would move without being touched, and the sound of disembodied voices echoed through the halls. But the most chilling development came when Janet began to speak in a deep, guttural voice, a voice that claimed to be that of Bill Wilkins, an elderly man who had died in the house years earlier. Through Janet, the entity declared that it had no intention of leaving. It would taunt the family, shouting obscenities and threatening harm. At one point, Janet was thrown down the stairs by the unseen force, leaving her bruised and terrified. The family was living in a constant state of fear, unsure of what would happen next. Neighbors began to hear the commotion, and soon word of the haunting spread throughout the community. News of the Enfield haunting quickly reached the media, and the Hodgson home became the focus of intense scrutiny. Among those who arrived to investigate were Maurice Grosse and Lyon Playfair, 2 members of the Society for Psychical Research. They were determined to uncover the truth behind the phenomena, but what they witnessed would challenge everything they thought they knew about the paranormal. Over the course of their investigation, Grosse and Playfair documented more than 1,500 separate incidents. They witnessed levitation, object manipulation, and even physical attacks. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence was a recording of Janet speaking in the deep, raspy voice of Bill Wilkins. The voice claimed to have died of a hemorrhage in the house and expressed anger at the living for disturbing his peace. Investigators also captured photographs of objects flying through the air and furniture moving on its own. Police officers who visited the house reported strange occurrences as well. One officer, Carolyn Heaps, witnessed a chair sliding across the floor with no apparent force behind it. She later stated, "I'm a skeptic, but what I saw that day I cannot explain." The Enfield Poltergeist quickly became a media sensation. Newspapers ran headlines like "The House of Horrors" and "The Ghost That Terrorized a Family." Photographers and reporters camped outside the Hodgson home, hoping to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. But with the attention came skepticism. Many accused the family, particularly Janet, of staging the events for fame and profit. Critics pointed to inconsistencies in the family's accounts and suggested that Janet and her siblings were using clever tricks to fool investigators. However, the sheer volume of evidence and the number of credible witnesses made it difficult to dismiss the case entirely. Even hardened skeptics were left questioning their beliefs. Was this a genuine haunting or an elaborate hoax? The debate raged on, dividing public opinion and fueling the mystery. Over the years, numerous theories have been proposed to explain the Enfield poltergeist. Some believe it was a classic case of poltergeist activity, often associated with the presence of a young, emotionally distressed individual. In this case, Janet. Poltergeists are thought to be manifestations of psychic energy, often linked to adolescents undergoing emotional turmoil. Others suggest that the events were a form of mass hysteria fueled by the family's fear and the media's sensationalism. The power of suggestion, they argue, could have amplified ordinary occurrences into something seemingly supernatural. Then there are those who point to the possibility of a hoax. Critics argue that Janet and her siblings may have orchestrated the events using clever tricks to fool investigators and the public. However, the consistency and complexity of the phenomena make this theory difficult to prove. How could an 11-year-old girl convincingly mimic the voice of an elderly man or levitate in front of multiple witnesses? From a religious standpoint, the Enfield poltergeist has been interpreted in various ways, often depending on one's faith and beliefs. In Christianity, for example, such phenomena are frequently associated with demonic activity. The deep, guttural voice speaking through Janet, the violent physical manifestations, and the oppressive atmosphere in the house align with descriptions of demonic possession in religious texts. Some believe that the entity claiming to be Bill Wilkins was, in fact, a malevolent spirit masquerading as the deceased man to deceive the family and investigators. Exorcisms and spiritual interventions are often recommended in such cases. While no formal exorcism was performed at the Hodgson home, the family did seek help from local clergy and spiritual advisors. However, the activity persisted, leading some to question whether the entity was truly demonic or simply a restless spirit. In other religious traditions, such as spiritualism, the events might be seen as the work of a disembodied spirit, a soul unable to move on to the afterlife. According to this belief, the spirit of Bill Wilkins may have been trapped in the house, seeking to communicate with the living. The poltergeist activity could have been his way of expressing frustration or unresolved emotions. Interestingly, some religious scholars suggest that poltergeist phenomena are not inherently evil, but rather a form of spiritual energy that humans do not yet fully understand. They argue that such events could be a natural part of the spiritual world, intersecting with our physical reality in ways that seem mysterious or frightening. The activity in the Hodgson home eventually subsided, but the family was forever changed by their experience. Janet, now an adult, has spoken publicly about the haunting, insisting that it was real. "I wouldn't wish it on anyone," she said in an interview. "It was a living nightmare." Today, the house on Green Street still stands, though its current occupants report no unusual activity. But for those who lived through the Enfield poltergeist, the memories of those terrifying nights will never fade. The case remains one of the most well-documented and debated paranormal events in history, inspiring books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood film. The Enfield poltergeist is a story that challenges our understanding of the world. It forces us to confront the possibility that there are forces beyond our comprehension, forces that lurk in the shadows, waiting to make their presence known. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, one thing is certain: the mystery of the Enfield poltergeist will continue to haunt us for generations to come. So what do you think? Was the Enfield poltergeist a supernatural event, a psychological phenomenon, or something else entirely? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most chilling mysteries, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from the world of the unexplained. Until next time, stay curious and remember, some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved.